All right, so I wanted to make this video. Who knows how long it's going to be? Probably not too long, but I think I'm going to title this something with iPhone 12 in the title. Most likely, how I'm going to stop using this device. And at this point, it's really not as big of a deal as it used to be. I know there used to be this whole iPhone versus Android, or iOS versus Android, or whatever you want to call it. And I've definitely found myself kind of caught up in the mix as well, going back and forth between the only two real viable mobile operating systems right now. And I'll be honest, I've been using this for the last year. In fact, a little more than a year. I believe I bought it in April of 2021, and now we're in August of 2022. So it's served its purpose, okay? And not to say that it's obsolete or it's problematic at all. I mean, Apple's going to support this phone probably for the next 3 to 4 years, which on the Android side, you really can't necessarily say is truth, considering this phone came out in 2020. The likelihood that it'll still be supported in 2024, 2025, maybe even 2026 is really good. I like how small it is. I had the iPhone 4. That was my first iPhone. Then I had the iPhone 5C. And then when Apple moved over to the iPhone 6 series, I tried it for a little bit. And then I said, I don't like it. And the main reason was that the phone was too big. Now, by today's standards, that's not a large phone at all. But at the time, I said, you know what? I just don't like the way that this phone feels in my hand. And I think going back to the 5C for a little bit. And then I went over to some Android devices, so forth and so forth. I mean, heck, that was quite some years ago, maybe 6 or so years ago now. But here we are with the iPhone 12 mini. And I have decided that actually, as of right now, my main SIM card is not even in this phone. There is no SIM card in the phone. It still powers on and everything, but I'm not actively using it. So, as I was discussing with a friend yesterday, my thoughts on Apple and the iPhone really, for me, kind of sum into a few things, 3 or 4 main categories of thought, or I'd say intellectual property, really, where Apple has constructively come up with these things, done their best to make it to seem as these are exclusive features to this particular platform, and then in turn, of course, locked in their users, their customers. So what's the first thing that I'd like to mention? And before I begin, I'd like to say that as time has progressed, really more recently than anything else, it appears that Apple is going to have to loosen the reins on some of these items. So the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about something that Apple controls and they don't open up to the rest of the world, really just, again, the only other mobile operating system, or if they wanted to create a Windows application, that would work because technically it's available on the Mac as well, is FaceTime. FaceTime has become essentially a verb. Like, hey, do you want to FaceTime? Now, usually you do say that to somebody who does have an iOS or a Mac OS product, but at the same time, there are plenty of people who just use that term as a verb, or hey, yeah, we're going to FaceTime, but you might actually be using Google Duo, or if you happen to still be using Skype or any of the other video messaging platforms that are out there, you might actively say that. Kind of like people say Zooms. I had a bunch of Zooms today because they were on Zoom calls, and who knows, they might have been on Microsoft Teams. I really don't know. But FaceTime for a while was something that I too said, hey, FaceTime on this device is way better than Google Duo. And it was just the video quality always seemed to be better. And yeah, just the ease of just, hey, you bring up somebody's contact, tap FaceTime, boom, you're good to go. Is it that much more work to open a Google Duo app? No, not at all. And in fact, as of late, if you go into one of your contacts who has a Google Duo, the Google Duo app downloaded on their phone, and I believe if you might have called them once or twice, it gives you the option to select Google Duo as a video messaging option for that particular contact. I just learned that out from a friend recently. So yeah, I think even Apple has even kind of said, all right, everybody doesn't use FaceTime. So one, let's integrate that option to dial to a Google Duo account. And two, which I think this is more so just of a reaction to the pandemic, the fact that you can now generate and share a FaceTime link to individuals who don't have iOS or Mac OS or iPad OS products. So it's not as walled off as it once was. It still is pretty much. I mean, yeah, there is no FaceTime app available for non-Apple products. But hey, if you want to feel cool and you want to be a part of the cool kids group, you can say, hey, oh, you guys are FaceTime? Yeah, go ahead, send me the link. Do people who don't have iOS products or Apple products know that the FaceTime link is an option? I don't know. In fact, I feel like there's definitely a lot of people who have iOS products that don't know the link exists or the link option exists. Is it even used that much? I don't know. I mean, Apple has that data. They can, definitely determine whether or not it's something worth keeping around. And at this point, it's probably just something that is going to stick around. Whether or not people use it or not doesn't really matter. But FaceTime definitely is one of those things that, hey, it's iconic to Apple's products in the modern era, I will say, to their mobile products. And that's one thing that I'm like, all right, FaceTime's kind of cool, but I too have recognized there's plenty of other options out there. I don't need to ever use FaceTime again, and I'll be perfectly fine with that in terms of being able to video conference with somebody else. So FaceTime, hey, cool. I'm able to let that one go. The next one is, okay. And in fact, this is something that I really, really, really used to like about the iPhone. But as time has progressed, and we're talking 10 years later, one of the most problematic things about the phone is that Lightning port. See, I was about to say the wrong thing. Is that Lightning port. So back in 2015, 14, whatever year it was, in fact, I think it was 2014, maybe even 2013 when it came out. I don't know. Whenever the iPhone 5 came out. Yeah, somebody look it up. The Lightning port on that, yes, we all complained about it, or a lot of people complained about it, because yeah, you were so used to the 30-pin connection, and then you're like, oh, we got to buy a new cable, blah 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 blah. Hey, I'm saying that, but I complained too briefly because yeah, I had an iPhone 4, and I was like, well, I had an iPhone 4 and an iPod, so I was like, all right, I got to buy something else to charge this phone, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that big of a deal. But hey, it's something that we complained about. And at some point when that was happening, people said, well, if you had non-Apple products, how many different charges could you potentially have used over the same period of time or whatever? And it was a lot more. Yes, it all kind of settled to micro USB, and then, mini USB, then micro USB, then of course now USB-C. But for a while, each individual company had their own little proprietary thing, and it kind of was a hassle. So Apple making one change definitely caused an uproar, but it probably wasn't warranted. But the problem that I have, and a lot of people have, is the fact that this port hasn't changed since then. It is still the Lightning port. It still runs data speeds at USB 2.0 speeds, which in the modern era, I will say, I believe, is unacceptable. But it's only unacceptable if the manufacturer of that device expects you to actually use that port for that particular reason. Who's transferring stuff off of their iPhone? Nobody really. I mean, you can't transfer stuff onto the iPhone, so that's not even an option. But transferring stuff off of the iPhone via this port, nobody really does it. So I can see why they haven't upgraded it. But the fact is, it's still not what the rest of the industry is using, which is USB-C. So USB 2.0 runs at, I think, 480 megabits per second. USB 3.0 is roughly 10 times faster than that, running at 5 gigabits per second. So if the hardware vendor, Apple in the situation, actually expected you to utilize the port, then they would probably have upgraded it to support faster speeds. But I don't think they actually expect you to use it. So that's why one of many reasons I'm sure that they haven't actually decided to upgrade it. But what sucks is, where is it? It's right here. So yeah, I have my little USB-C charger right here. This is for my Lenovo ThinkPad, but it's all universal. So I can charge my ThinkPads with it. I only have one right now. I can charge my MacBook with it because Apple put USB-C on the MacBook. I can charge my Sony, whatever you want to call them, over-the-ear headphones right there. I have some Google Pixel Pods. Or Pixel Buds, excuse me. You get the picture, though, that so many things right now utilize USB-C. And the fact that Apple has purposely chosen to integrate it into other aspects of their ecosystem and then say, hey, well, our moneymaker right here can't have it yet. It just shows the, I don't want to say vindictive mindset of this particular company, because they all do it, but it really is evident like, hey, you've done it for all of your other products. In fact, I think Apple was pivotal on the instantiation of USB-C, but the fact that they have purposely taken this much time to avoid putting it on the iPhone, I feel like it shows what type of company that they are, what type of company they become. And some people would just say, well, that's just capitalism, and they're a public company, a private company, and they're able to do whatever they want, which you're right, they are, but it sucks that in the realm of technology or computing or whatever you want to call it, you would hope for the improved experience for everybody. Okay, like, yes, you're going to make money. You're going to make your hundreds of billions of dollars this quarter, next year, whatever. So changing the port just to better suit the ecosystems of other people isn't problematic. But you know what else, or what is the case? And I truly believe this is something that people, not in back room, but the people are in the company that have to make these decisions. So right now with that lightning cable, which can I reach it to the video? There it is. All right. With this little lightning cable, this is an actual Apple lightning cable. And as always, they break, so you can't see it. But there's a little crack right there. So this thing's on its last leg. I'm sure this whole shell is going to pop off at some point. But these cables are absolutely trash. But they are overpriced. And if you choose to buy a third-party cable, the one that is MFI or made for iPhone or made for whatever it all stands for, Apple still gets that licensing fee. So even though you're not buying it from Apple, even though it's not an Apple cable, in order to make that cable, and in order for you to not get that pop-up on your phone saying charging not supported or whatever that little pop-up is, you have to get that license or pay for that license from Apple. And I think there's a tiny little piece of hardware in there or something too that makes it all work. So Apple gets money whether you buy it from them directly, or if you buy it from somebody else, they're still getting money indirectly, or still directly that way, because the licensing fees were already paid. Now, here's what I think, though. They are in the process of coming to grips with the fact that, all right, in fact, well, I don't feel like getting it, but I was going to get, actually, I'm going to get up and get it. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. And in fact, I might have hit the wrong button. Anyway, no, I didn't. All right, cool. It's still going. So what I'm thinking Apple is coming to grips with is, all right, you have the lightning cables, and Apple can easily say, these cables need to be made to our standards. That's why they cost more. We have to verify, validate, whatever the nature of the materials, the hardware that goes into all that stuff, and that's why they cost how much they cost. So boom, and no other devices use Lightning. All right, you're only going to find this port on Apple products. So right now, iPhones and some iPads, and a few other things, and I'll get to that in a moment. But what I feel like they can't do, and they realize it, is that, yes, this right here is a USB-C to USB-C cable. This is an Apple one. This came with a MacBook Air. And yeah, it's fine. Like, I don't know if there's any type of proprietary stuff inside here that's saying, this is only going to charge MacBooks, or MacBooks are looking for this particular cable. I don't know. I don't think that's the case, because they know that the moment they open USB-C or put USB-C on this device, if you have literally any modern day laptop right now, you're going to be able to charge your phone. And Apple won't be able to say, well, that cable that you might have purchased from Google, from Microsoft, from Lenovo, from Dell, from Sony, from literally any other reputable company doesn't work with our stuff. And I think that would be a hard line that a lot of people might actually say, well, wait a minute. That's not right. Like, they've been, doing all this funny business for years, and we've kind of just gone along with it because, yeah, it's a special port. This port is only found on your product. So yeah, it makes sense for you to be able to control what cables actually go in here. But the moment you start saying that all these other companies are wrong, and that the only thing that works on our product is our cable, even though it looks exactly the same, they're going to say, well, hopefully some consumers will say, well, maybe we should reconsider some stuff. So yeah, USB-C here, yeah, both are fine. I have not even, no, this was in the box. I haven't even used this yet to charge my MacBook, but I've been using this and only this cable really to charge the MacBook. And yes, as I said before, this cable is a Lenovo cable, so no problems with it. And yeah, at some point they will lose some money. I'm sure they're going to charge more for USB-C cables. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but the whole MFI, like that, I don't want to say that program has to disappear, but it kind of has to. Okay, if it's USB-C, it's supposed to be universal. And if Apple's doing some funny business in their specific cables, I would hope consumers at that point would say, okay, enough is enough. All right, enough is enough. And as I'm talking right now, I'm thinking about, well, what's going on over in Europe right now. The European Union essentially is forcing Apple to put USB-C on the iPhones in an effort to, I guess, mitigate e-waste, which I get it. And there was a time when I'd be highly in favor of it. And as time has gone on, I've started to think, well, okay, your goal is to mitigate e-waste or to reduce e-waste. But if you take a company that's as successful as Apple and that sells as many products as Apple, and you say, okay, the cables that currently exist that charge this port are going to become obsolete. Yeah, you have to you'll keep using them for a while, and then those will get thrown away. And I don't know exactly if somebody's done like a true forecast projection of, well, is this really going to save? I feel like I have read something, and if everybody is just using the same cable, then we might be good to go. But several things I think we should definitely consider are, okay, aside from the iPhone, what other products are going to have to change their port? Of course, they're all going to be Apple products, at least for the conversation of the Lightning port needing to go away. But it's, yes, the iPhone. It's the AirPods case. It's the Apple TV remote. It's the Magic Mouse. It's the Magic Trackpad. I think the wireless Magic keyboard also charges over Lightning. So these are other things that are going to have to be retooled in order to have a USB-C port, which is interesting. I think it is. There are definitely speculations of the iPhone going portless. I doubt that's ever going to happen. But for something like an AirPod case, maybe that would be like the first, I guess, experiment with, hey, is portless charging or only portless charging an option on something like that? Maybe Apple would give it a try. For the other devices that I mentioned, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if any of them are, well, they make small enough batteries to put in a lot of these things, like disposable batteries, and I don't think Apple would ever want to go that route. But I mean, that's a way for them to avoid some cost, I can imagine. They'd have to do some retooling, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But the next thing I was thinking about is, well, as Apple and now all other companies have gone that particular route of, well, we're not going to include a charging brick in the box because chances are you already have one. A lot of people were upset about that. And the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And then it would have been nice if, they did pass the savings on to the consumer. I mean, granted, it probably only cost them like 50 cents for them to buy it, but they charge us however much. And I mean, if they would have cut the cost, not 50 cents, but if we would have seen some type of savings as a consumer as a result of them not including something in the box anymore, that would have been nice. But of course that didn't happen. But that brings me to now this next thought process though of, okay, well, if we're going to USB-C on our next phone, the whole premise is that everybody's already using this port. So do we even need to include a cable in the box anymore? So are you just going to get a phone? And I think they would be justified in doing that because, again, the assumption is that you already have one of these, which is why we're trying to reduce e-waste. So instead of us including another cable that's specifically designed for one of our products, we're going to not include any cables because the port that we're now forced to use is the port that all other devices already use. Hence, you already have a cable to charge your devices. So next year, iPhone 15 time, I would not be surprised if there was no cable in the box. So all that to say, First thing was FaceTime, kind of loosen that up, whatever, it's available, but there's also a ton of competing applications out there for people to use that aren't using iOS products, or even if they are, they can still use other options. Second thing was the Lightning port. Yeah, that might be going away in 2023 in favor of USB-C. And I definitely said early on, I'm in favor of it, and I think I used to be more in favor of it. And as time has gone on, I've kind of said, well, I don't know if I want the government having to tell companies, hey, you need to use this port. I mean, I kind of will say the industry spoke, and this is what the industry resulted in using, minus Apple. And then now they're like, all right, well, Apple, you have to adopt the industry standard. So yeah, that would be kind of nice for them to, it would be nice for big companies just to say, you know what, that's right. We might lose some money, but we're going to do something that universally helps all customers. So yeah, that is my rant on the second thing. And the third thing, which isn't, it's I don't really know how I feel about it. I mean, I get a little frustrated, but it's iMessage. Okay. So you take a standard SMS client, which we all have, and we have all had for quite a while, just sending regular text messages and then some multimedia messages. If you're sending pictures, videos usually suck going that route. And you take this IP-based form of communication, so you can send these high resolution photos, these actual high quality videos. You can get the read receipts, the typing indicators. Now there's going to be the ability to edit messages or to recall them. You can send, you can do a lot of stuff when you have essentially the internet connecting your devices, more so than just the standard SMS fire and forget type mentality. But you take those two approaches and you merge them together, and now you have the Messages app on the iPhone. And a lot of people, especially in the United States, do use that app. I mean, it's the default app that comes on the phone, and merging those two technologies together just makes it so much easier than having to say, well, I'm going to use this app for just my regular SMSs, and then I'll use WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram or Google Allo or, just a bunch of other stuff that exist in an effort to send higher quality pictures, videos. The group message landscape is better for iMessage and these other apps. It's just easier to use the default app. So I don't think Apple. Well, yeah, they're never going to make an iMessage app for non-Apple products. So you can use it on the iPhone, the iPad, the Mac. Cool. But what bothers me, and I don't think a lot of people even know it exists, and I didn't know it exists. I mean, I've been following it for the past couple of years now, but it's been around for a lot longer. But right now, the standard way to send a text message is SMS. What Google wanted, they wanted the carriers to say, hey, RCS, which is Rich Communication Services, it needs to replace SMS. SMS is old. It was made for something different. We need something better. Fundamentally, we need something to compete with iMessage also on Google's platform. So Google asked the carriers, at least here in this country, and I think around the world, to start developing whatever they would when it comes to RCS. And they all not all, some of them kind of made something, but at the end of the day, I don't think many did much. And what they did do probably wasn't compatible with other carriers. So yeah, if you were talking to other people on Verizon or AT&T that, were in your same network, maybe you saw a benefit if you aren't using an iPhone. But then Google finally was just like, you know what, we're going to do it. And that's final. And they did. I think maybe about 3 years ago now, I had one of my Pixels, and it might have been a Sony at the time. I don't know. I had a phone. And I remember, RCS has been launched or whatever, and it's universal. And I was able to, I think I just had to update the Google Messages app, and then boom, it was there. I could see instead of saying text message, it now says chat. But of course, that only works if you're chatting with somebody else who also has an Android device and is using Google Messages, which you don't have to use. But some other apps, I think, support it. So I don't know. But of the two other items that I mentioned, FaceTime, USB-C, you can kind of see those things loosening up. I don't think iMessage is going to get loosened up, and I really don't think Apple is going to adopt RCS, at least no time soon. And that for me, I think bothers me more than the other two. And it's because they know that there is that iMessage lock-in. Some consumers probably don't realize it, but a lot do. But I mean, yeah, there have been emails showing that, yeah, from these C-level executives that, oh, maybe we should make an iMessage app for Android. And then another executive is like, no, because that will give parents a reason to not buy their kids iPhones. And then once you're in it, yeah, you don't want to leave it because all of your friends or family members are using it. And to be that odd person out to say, hey, if we have group messages, do you mind using or first downloading and then using another app just to include me? Like, no, it's not going to work. And I thought that way for FaceTime for a little while, but at the end of the day, we might video chat, let's say once a week. And asking somebody to download another app for you just to use once a week is fine. But if you're constantly engaging in text messages, asking somebody else to constantly use that messaging app as opposed to the one that they're using with everybody else, it's just not, it's not a practical thing. And if Apple chose to adopt RCS, yes, the messaging experience between iOS devices and Android devices would improve. Hence, in my opinion, and probably Apple's opinion too, would give people a reason to not buy iPhones. Also, potentially give people a reason to leave iPhone. If they know, hey, I can get this exact same experience while using an Android device, which I might actually like more, or might be a little bit cheaper, or might offer different options, or screen sizes, colors, shapes, manufacturers, USB-C. Since we're talking about that right now, maybe I'll go over to Android, and again, I'll get that same texting experience with you, and it won't be problematic the way that it is now. So I will say that in the, I think 24 hours that my SIM card has been out of this phone, I attempted to, my mom actually attempted to send me something. She has an iPhone. And she was like, yeah, I noticed it said not delivered. I wasn't really too sure what that was about. And I was like, yeah, Mom, I took my SIM card out of my iPhone. It's in my Android. So from this point forward, yeah, you're not going to get the green, the blue bubble that you're used to seeing. It's going to be green. You're not going to get the little delivered option. When it does send, you're just going to send it. And maybe I got it, maybe I didn't. You won't really know. Yeah, so like me changing phones is impacting other people, and that shouldn't be the case. And of course, another friend essentially just said the same thing yesterday too, that, hey, can you put your SIM card back in your iPhone because I don't want you missing any of my messages. Because yeah, at the end of the day, somebody sends you a text or somebody sends a text, they don't know if the recipient actually got it. The beauty of these internet-based messaging apps is that, yeah, it says delivered, and yeah, it's tracking, and it knows, hey, it was received. So was it read? Yeah, you have the option of turning that on or off, but yeah, at least we know it was delivered. Whereas when you're just sending a regular SMS, yeah, it's kind of fire and forget. So yeah, I have finally, I think, decided for me, I really don't like the iOS experience, okay? But what was keeping me here is iMessage, because the vast majority of people that I talk to all have iPhones. I mean, I think there might be 3 people, and that's, I think, truthful, 3 people who I talk to on a regular basis that have Android devices. And it's like, well, I'll continue using this, and then for literally everything else that isn't a phone call or a text message, I have other Android devices to serve those purposes. But now I think I'm just like, nope, I send a decent amount of text messages, but I'm not sending a bunch of high resolution pictures, a bunch of videos. I'm not in a ton of group chats. So the perks of iMessage for me really aren't that important right now. I mean, in the past, maybe I was, engaged in some more of those things. But right now, I think I'm just like, you know what? Send me some text. Maybe I get it, maybe I don't. If I don't respond, call me. And for me, if I need to send you something and it's important, I'll probably call you. If I don't hear from you, even if I think it's text appropriate, maybe I'll just end up calling you. But yeah, those are the big 3 things that I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is a good thing. Just got a little notification on my wrist from my non-Apple Watch. But I'm going to cut this one short. We're approaching 30 minutes. There's one more thing I'm going to complain about in a few moments, but I think I'll make another video about that. But until next time, again, you have other choices out there. This is an okay product. It's not bad. But for me, the three things that I mentioned definitely are problematic and not a reason to stay locked in the ecosystem. The support that Apple gives their devices is really good, but it's the support at what expense? And that expense is interoperability sometimes with other non-Apple products. And for me, enough is enough.